Oh, yeet. It's episode 66 of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. Rachel Blackfyre is back again, and before we jump into it, I'm really excited to announce that the Dank Podstash is now officially sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. It's time to get hashtag Boogaloo ready and in fighting shape. Greg Papanikolas is going to get you there with personalized meal plans, training, group support, and tons of amazing fitness and motivational resources and knowledge, including the Project Sparta Facebook group. You can go to anarchyliftingcoach.com and learn more about Greg's work. And then, when you're ready to get signed up and get fit, go to gregpapanikolas.clickfunnels.com/opt-in and get started on your path to health. I'm in Project Sparta now. I'm down a few pounds already. I'm feeling great. I'm loving the personalized menu and workouts. Don't be that guy that only sits and talks about change, whether it's your health or the Boogaloo. You got to get up. You got to start drilling, training, prepping. And one of the most important parts of all that, of prepping everything in life, no matter what for, is your physical health. Greg's going to help you with that. Get to anarchyliftingcoach.com now and get after it. We also have a special offer for our listeners from friend of the show, author and content creator Shane Radliff of Liberty Under Attack Publications. You can take 10% off your order by using coupon code DANK10. That's DANK10, 10. Go to libertyunderattack.com to get that 10% off on books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategies, solutions, and more. Current books include Hashtag Agora, Second Realm Book on Strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's very own Vanu, A Strategy for Self-Liberation. Also, you got Wildfire by Matt Wotecki, former guest of the show. Go check out that cast. Liberty Under Attack also offers assistance to new authors throughout the publishing process, including editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook productions. That's Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom. Want to shout out Bad Moon Hemp? Check out badmoonhemp.wordpress.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your handmade hemp needs. I use their beard oil and beard balm. I love it. Smells great. Beard is soft, healthy. It's wonderful. Definitely check them out. badmoonhemp.wordpress.com. One more shout out to our friend of the show, former guest Shane Hunter, aka the Abrasive Entrepreneur. Get yourself over to abrasiveads.com and opt in for a free first training from the man himself on Maslow's hierarchy of needs tied into marketing. This is valuable stuff that you can't go without if you're looking to market your content. That's abrasiveads.com. Now enjoy episode 66 of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. Audio's a little rough starting out, but we get it figured out quick. Enjoy.
Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Podstash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. Check out thedankpodstash.com to find every episode of the Dank Podstash, links to support the show via our BitBacker and Patreon, Dank Podstash merchandise, and much more. If you'd like to advertise on the Dank Podstash, email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com.
Zombie presidents, what anarchy! Zombie presidents!
Back for another episode with Rachel. What's going on?
Just moved into a new house.
I can
in
see.
Baltimore, so we haven't got anything into it yet.
Yeah. Feels good, huh?
Yeah, I finally am a leaseholder.
Nice. Excellent. Well,
Hopefully at home.
watch out for the rent is theft crowd. They'll come for you.
For shit.
So, today,
I like
among other things, we're going to be talking about punk rock and anarchy, which I found some interesting connections between that and a piece on temporary autonomous zones that I narrated for Shane over at Liberty Under Attack Publications. But I don't know. Before we jump into that, I got to say, it's been pretty wild in the last couple of days with everything with Iran and the U.S. and all that stuff. It's just bootlickers everywhere.
stuff.
Say again?
And the med card stuff too is happening at the same time. How people are finally realized that you can't own guns if you buy weed. Well, if you buy it through the legal system. And I'm just like, is it worth it to get my med card and like not be thrown in jail for weed and not get drafted? Because if you're medicated for a psychiatric illness, which is, well, I would just get a med card for PTSD if I was going to get a med card. You're not supposed to go into the military, so then you have not getting drafted protection, but you also can't own guns.
Right. Yeah, I don't support getting medical cards. I understand the want to stay safe from the from the state, but I mean, I don't know. In all the years growing up in Arizona, I lived there for 29 years. I don't think we ever got it legally. And yeah, you can get popped, but I don't know. That's a personal decision for everybody that's got to decide. But the draft comment, that's cash money, and war with Iran is not cash money.
Yeah, but like if you're on antidepressants, you're exempt from the draft. So I'm wondering if it applies to med cards.
I don't know.
What do I want to not get or to have my guns?
Well,
hopefully they don't break the draft. They haven't had one since Vietnam.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, can you move a little closer to the mic and getting some cutout and echo? Is that possible?
Hey, is that better?
Yes, it is. Much better, much better. Yeah, it's funny too, because if you were still able to be drafted, even with a medical cannabis card, and you're not allowed to have guns, they're going to come after your guns as a private citizen. They're literally just going to give you guns if you are drafted. So 6 of one way, half dozen of the other for the state, right?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But all the stuff with Iran, the anti-war stuff, actually feeds nicely into talking about punk rock and anarchy, because generally,
Definitely.
yeah, punks are anti-war. A lot of songs about anti-war, bands that it's like almost their whole identity, and it seems like we don't have that much anymore. There aren't a whole lot of actual anarchist punk bands left. And I was reading an interesting piece on crimethink.com talking about that. Like, the record companies have skimmed the actual good bands with something to stand for and kind of morphed them into pretty much sellouts. I guess that's the word in the scene still, huh?
Dead Kennedys is not the same band at all anymore. But there's some like you're not gonna find it as much in you're gonna find it in like DIY scenes like folk punk or crust punk, but there are still some like active bands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting point in the Crime Think article. I'll put that in the show description as well. But they actually were railing against capitalism pretty hard in the Crime Think article that I was reading, and how it kind of infiltrated the folk punk kind of DIY stuff. People getting full cabs instead of, shitty single amps, and not caring about the quality of their equipment and just making music, led to a lot of money being spent on their setups, and kind of moving away from the whole point of folk punk and the DIY movement.
Yeah, I just find music on YouTube. I don't really go to shows anymore. Because I lived in Richmond for a long time, and I was under 21, and then the only bar that was allowed under 21s for like punk shows got shut down, and I just got out of the habit of going to shows.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've gone as well. You've been more into the metal scene lately, but I do remember back in the day in Tucson, we had a couple venues that were pretty much specifically punk, all ages stuff. Did you have any of that around there, or was it pretty much all bar scene?
I mean, there was like a venue that was like a bicycle co-op that sometimes they would have all ages shows, but mostly it was at bars, and the only punk bar that was 18 plus was Strange Matter, and they got shut down, and they shut down.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about small punk scenes, even some that get kind of big. You mentioned it was at a bicycle co-op. That's awesome. We had a place in Tucson. I think it might still be around. It may have moved, called Dry River. That was a free clothing like closet and pantry. And it was like a community kind of thing run by punks, and there were shows every weekend there and sometimes during the week. And that's one of the coolest connections, I think, between punk and anarchy is the do-it-yourself stuff and creating your own economy almost, you know? A lot of people liken it to like socialism or communism in the way they're doing it. I see it more as agorism.
Yeah. Well, a lot of punks are left-leaning anarchists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an ANCAP, so I don't really fit in with that. But like, it's one of the things that's made me realize like ANCOMs and ANCAPs could really get along if they just focused on the things that like they have in common. Like we agree on 90% of the things. There's no need to constantly squabble over the 10%.
Right.
Like,
the biggest agreement is just the biggest agreement I see is usually just economics, right?
Yeah, it's just economics and like property stuff. This is like the big disagreement.
Did your being an ANCAP come up at punk shows, punk gatherings, anything like that?
Not really. I'm probably gonna get back into the punk scene in Baltimore. The Richmond scene was way more libertarian. Like a lot of the goth scene was full of libertarians, and those scenes kind of run together, kind of intersect at some points. Like the goth bar in Richmond was run by, it's run by this lady Jackie, and then her husband Pete. You might be friends with him on Facebook for all I know. He is a really anarchist leaning LP candidate. He just runs at various elections.
Nice.
So yeah, just really libertarian culture there in like the Richmond punk goth scene. But we'll see how it is in Baltimore.
Yeah. So were there people generally flying anarcho-communist colors, patches, that kind of stuff? I mean, I would imagine that was much more prevalent than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, people would talk about ANCOM stuff, and like, I mean, I don't see the point in debating. Like, you know, we're just at a show enjoying ourselves. Let's just talk about the things we agree about. There's a time and a place for debate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's the thing. Like the ANCOMs and ANCAPs spend way too much time debating each other. Like, okay, maybe spend the time that's proportionate to what you disagree with. You disagree on like 10% of the things, so like work together most of the time. There's room for debate. It's too hostile, in my opinion.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a criticism of the punk scene a lot is preaching to the converted, people who already know what's going on. It's the same thing among anarchists, just fighting with each other, talking about your different philosophies. We're already at anarchy, so we could put that together pretty easily. But I think the first exposure to anarchist symbolism for me was most likely ANCOM symbols. I don't remember a lot. It was a long time ago. Lots of drinking and drugs since then, but definitely a few ANCOM bands that I used to play shows with that I didn't have any idea exactly what that was when I was 16, 17. But they got it in my head. So what kind of anarchist bands are you? Are there any anarchist bands that you're into now? Any punk bands that are still active that you would say are anarcho-punk?
There's a lot of folk punk. Pat the Bunny is like my main modern anarchist musician, and he actually quit music in 2016 and also said he no longer identifies as an anarchist and then just dropped off the face of the earth. So who only knows what he's up to, but yeah. I'm sure, I don't know, I haven't looked into like the actual politics of a lot of the like folk punk musicians I like, but I'm sure there's some of them are like anarcho punk because there's the lyrics are anarcho punk leaning. Yeah, with like hardcore and like crust punk, I'm mostly into like older 80s and 90s stuff. A lot of like hardcore artists like Henry Rollins and Jello Biafra, they've just become Democrats. Like, hey, I love Henry Rollins and I think he's a genius, but then he starts talking about how we need gun control, and I'm like, oh no, you could have just not talked about that, and I'd have thought you were a genius.
Right. Absolutely. I prefer Black Flag pre Henry Rollins, anyways, and he just kind of put the nail in the coffin for me with that kind of stuff. But
I like him. I like his era of Black Flag, and I like Rollins Band, and I like his spoken word. It's just his politics kind of suck.
Mm-hmm.
He does have a lot of cool videos on, like, I've seen like cool videos of him talking about gay rights and stuff, where it's just kind of like this live and let live thing. And I'm like, can you apply that to guns?
Yeah, they don't generally make that connection as far as live and let live from people to guns. But yeah, I was able to meet Jello Biafra at a NoFX show in Tucson a long time ago. And I remember I was trying to get him to sign a $1 bill, and he wouldn't sign it unless I was registered to vote. I was like, what the fuck is this? So I just told him, yeah, I'm registered to vote. Yeah, I just told him I was, and he signed it, but I was absolutely not. So worth it. Worth lying to Jello Biafra.
Maryland actually makes you register, so I'll be registered after I transfer my driver's license. And I registered for the 2016 election. I was an anarchist at that point, but I was still trying to do, maybe we can decrease the government. So I registered in 2016 to vote for Gary Johnson, and clearly that panned out well. Because did President Johnson just peacefully negotiate with Iran?
Yeah, that's
no, we got to cheat him.
Yeah, that's an alternate timeline. I mean, that might help if they didn't just burn it. It'd chill everybody out. That's a punk rock saying too. Drop weed, not bombs. That's been a thing in the punk scene forever. I love that.
I can see here. That could be that should be the next libertarian campaign slogan for the LP.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people seem to be getting pretty upset with that kind of messaging coming up in the LP. The people who want to push candidates have been screeching very loudly about people from the Audacious Caucus, Vermin Supreme, that kind of stuff. Just saying, why are we letting people make this a joke? And I guarantee they would come at it with the same, political fervor if people started saying drop weeds, not bombs. They'd be pretty upset.
Oh, okay, someone needs to make that slogan now. I think someone should turn that over to the Libertarian Party Tubular Caucus.
Yes.
That's a Facebook page.
I love it. I love all the ridiculous caucuses that pop up, like the Waffle House caucus.
There's also a psychedelic caucus, so you could turn it over to them.
Perfect.
But yeah, I will probably end up being registered to vote just out of, I registered in 2016 and it's just followed me. Because in Virginia, they re-register you when you, they auto re-register you when you, change your address at the DMV or go to the DMV for anything, so.
Is that pretty much what Baltimore or Maryland, I guess, does as well? They just automatically do it when you get your new license?
Maryland, you have to register when you get your ID or license.
Huh. Interesting.
I think Jake registered as independent because there's no Maryland LP on the ballot or whatever. There's Democrat, Republican, and I think it's Bread and Roses Party, which is clearly Bernie Sanders-esque.
Bread and Roses.
I wonder what that could mean.
Yeah.
Just call yourself the Socialist Party. When it's weird that that's the third common party in Maryland.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, if Bernie's very successful over there, it kind of makes sense. Do you know if you have to maintain it after this kind of forced registry, or can you cancel it?
I'm not sure. You would have to ask Jake about that. you could probably have him on the podcast to talk about things and ask him then.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Because I know Shane Radliff from Vanu Podcast and Liberty Under Attack has good resources on canceling your voter registration. Like he has the whole process lined out. I can't remember what the website is. I'll see if I can put that link in the comments as well. I think we talked about that.
Is it like getting excommunicated from the Mormon church? You have to sign like 3 letters.
I don't think it's that in depth.
The Mormon church is apparently horrible about getting about like letting you off of their registry. I think you talked to Bexley Crawford at one point. She went through that process recently, or like a year ago.
I've heard about that. I've heard from Mormons too that it's not actually that hard. I don't know what the deal is though, because I'm not involved in any of that, so I can't say. It might differ from person to person depending on what's going on with you and your status, but who fucking knows? Yeah.
I think it's.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's the same with the Catholic Church. Jehovah's Witness will throw you out for anything, but they'll still count you as part of their numbers because they want their numbers to be up.
Sure.
Like all the religions want their numbers to be up. It looks like it's not a weird call.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Doing a little bit of research, like I was saying, the Crime Think article and stuff made me pretty nostalgic for punk rock. I miss it. And I think I started talking about this a little bit, but in the face of, another war, World War III, or a continuation of the war now, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of music that's anti-war. Like we get plenty of podcasts and people talking about it and stuff, but it's not as popular as when, punk was more popular.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've looked at the history because I really like music, so I've looked at the history of music censorship a lot because I'm often drawn to controversial artists. It looks like the early 2000s is where that kind of died out. It looks like Eminem and Marilyn Manson were like the last controversial people.
Mm-hmm. Right. I guess the music industry, other people try to conflate controversy with, contrived controversy, I guess, because I remember people were saying, I don't know how you feel about this, but Lady Gaga was very controversial. I didn't see too much controversy in that.
No, she was a mainstream pop artist. She just dressed weird.
Yeah, she wore a meat suit.
With the... Yeah, I'm talking about artists who Dead Kennedys and NWA back in their day. Even the Beatles back in their day. And then in the 90s, you had like KMFDM, just other bands who are so controversial. Parents wanted to just ban them from existing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would protest shows and they wouldn't be able to play certain towns. And it looks like the last 2 people that happened with were Eminem and Marilyn Manson. That was in the early 2000s. That just kind of died down. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was it? It was probably, I guess, was in the 90s. It would have been Tipper Gore and, I don't know, one of the Bush, Laura Bush.
Yeah.
And we had Twisted fucking Sister fighting for us in front of Congress.
Yeah, I've seen, I think Stella Biafra went somewhere to debate Tipper Gore. Or, I don't know. There's like a really good video somewhere on YouTube of Jello Biafra talking about all this stuff.
Nice.
And yeah, and the last 2 artists that I can think of, they were, it's just made up controversy because they've got interesting music.
Mm-hmm.
They're both very smart, well-spoken people. It's like a whole genre of YouTube videos where talk shows in the 90s or 2000s would bring Marilyn Manson on, just like, oh, look at this freak, and then he'd be super smart.
Yes, those are amazing.
He just blows everyone out of the water.
Those videos are really good. They never see it coming either. It's like, this guy looks like a freak. He can't possibly be smart. And it's the same with punk, People don't expect punks to be eloquent, and a lot of time punks are not eloquent by choice, but can be if they want to be. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of...
Sometimes you have to work...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
sometimes you have to word things pretty crassly to get people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just telling them what it is, and then once you've got the attention, that's when you could bring out the like well-spoken stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think it was the first location of that place I was telling you about, Dry River in Tucson, playing a show, and we had a really big group, probably 50 to 100 people outside protesting us playing music there, having a punk show from a couple of local churches with loudspeakers and stuff. And it's just like really annoying. And I went over and talked to them with a couple other people, and they did not expect people to come over and actually talk to them. They figured we were over there to start a fight or something. And they're saying like, you need to go home to your family, and this is violence, and you're going to hell for this. And some people aren't even interested in listening when you can speak eloquently to them and explain what it's all about, that it's actually a good community.
Yeah, so the whole like do something shocking and then like be well spoken is kind of how I got into libertarianism. I think last time I mentioned my friend Carl is who got me into like anarchist stuff. He did a lot of weird controversial shit when he was an LP candidate. And that like got me interested. I kind of want to talk to this person, so I went and talked to him, and he was really smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so he helped get you into it. Was there any musical influence getting into it? Was that the start, or was more seeing that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah. Like I mentioned last time, I've always been like anti-authority leaning. I didn't have direction for it because I grew up in a really, really conservative town. So being anti-authoritarian was just being a Democrat in a way. Like in the scheme of things, it's not, but in that setting, it is. So like that was just kind of what I was for a while, and then like I started seeing like the bigger picture of the whole world. Yeah, so I've always been anti-authoritarian. So I've always been attracted to like punk music, stories of rebellion, like Star Wars or Hunger Games.
Yeah, for sure. I feel definitely the same way. And it's interesting too, because it's kind of such a small scene, kind of a closed scene almost, punk scenes, that people think it's just yelling and screaming about anti-authority, but just the actions, what I was saying about the temporary autonomous zones, the actions of a punk ecosystem, like people making their own or doing their own recordings and stuff, and making their own labels, all that kind of stuff outside of the mainstream.
And in like a punk scene or like a goth scene, people look out for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like if something happens, people will like pull together and try to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. My first, well, the music at the beginning of the show is from my band back in the day, SDA, and we recorded that album at my buddy Tim's house, who was in another band, and he just happened to have recording gear that he bought himself, and then we burned a bunch of CDs and sent it out. I remember doing the vocals in his closet. That was the sound room. So I was in there screaming, listening in headphones, and people making their own patches, all that stuff.
Hell yeah. We're probably going to record some stuff in this house. I'm going to try to like look into just using a computer to make guitars and drums and all that other stuff, so I can like, I don't know. I'll see what I come up with. Jake is actually pretty good at writing like rap lyrics.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we're gonna make anarchist music at some point.
Hell yeah, looking forward to that. That's pretty cool connection there too.
Neither of us can sing, so it's gonna be all rap music because you don't have to.
You don't necessarily have to sing for punk either. I wasn't singing much, mostly just being loud. But
you don't have to sing for punk.
Yeah,
you don't have to sing for or rap.
Nope. You gotta get the hook sometimes.
You just have to have energy, you know. You just have to have energy and like passion to put into the music. You have to have performance.
Yeah, absolutely. That was probably my favorite part about playing in punk bands, was the performance. the performance and getting that energy from the crowd and all that, doing wild things. I loved it. I think I had my favorite one was I was wearing American flag Converse because they looked hilarious because I have big feet, so it looked like big American flag clown shoes, and a sundress and a Barbie pinata purse filled with hard grandma candy that I threw out into the crowd, who then broke it open and pelted me with hard candy for the rest of the show. So much fun. But
I mean, any American flag shoes or clown shoes.
yeah, that's true. That's good stuff. I keep going off topic. I want to talk about the temporary autonomous zones and how they kind of relate to punk. I can't remember who wrote it, but so it's on, let's see, it's on the anarchistlibrary.org. I'll put a link in the description as well, but it's just a really cool chapter in, I don't know exactly what it is. It's ontological anarchy, poetic terrorism. Yeah, but there's a chapter on temporary autonomous zones, and they start with pirates and how they made their communities in like the Bahamas and Morocco and stuff like that, and moved around. What's that?
Like Nassau.
Mm-hmm. And
It's in the Caribbean. Yeah, played a lot of Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Yes, perfect. Yes. But I'm surprised they don't mention punk music here, because even music is connected deeply with the temporary autonomous zone. And I can't remember, I think it was in Italy or near Italy, there was an anarchist, and I guess he had raised an army, and they captured a town, dispersed the government, and he was going to give it to Italy. He just was pretty much getting his kicks, but they didn't want it. So he's like, all right, we're just going to party here. And the main thing we're going to do is music. That's the national pastime, is music. And so everybody make music. We'll have fireworks every night. And eventually, of course, they were taken over as well. But it's music's a powerful tool for revolution. And I think punks know that. And even if people are off-put by generally what punk is, what punk shows the outer world, it brings a lot of people in when they see what it's about and look at the lyrics and go to a show and have fun for the first time.
Yeah. I agree. There's like issues that I never would have thought about without music. For example, my first political position was being anti-war, and not because of punk music, but because of Johnny Cash. I listened to Johnny Cash a lot when I was like really young.
Mm-hmm.
So like 6 or 7, 8, I was super anti-war because of Johnny Cash.
Nice. What specifically from Johnny Cash?
He's got a lot of anti-war songs, mostly Man in Black, I think is the one. I actually started wearing all black because of him.
Nice.
Like when I got into like alternative ways of dressing, I've lightened up a bit. Like I like purple a lot, as you can tell by my hair. But black's still a good base. But I used to just wear all black.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
like in and of itself be a statement.
Sorry, go ahead.
That in and of itself can be a statement. I know one person back in Richmond who does who's like an extreme minimalist, who just wears all black because it's the easiest thing, have as little as possible. I think I have a friend on Facebook who's actually doing that with her baby. She has a bunch of black onesies for her baby, Erica.
Mm-hmm.
If you know her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she has a bunch of black onesies for her babies because it's easiest to clean, and like you know to match stuff so you don't waste as much.
Sure. Yep, and people don't know if you're wearing the same black clothes one day to the next if they're all black. So that's nice.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I've always been kind of surprised by the amount of people who are into punk who like Johnny Cash too. I can see it because he was a rebel. It's always surprised me.
Yeah, he's the godfather of kind of like that rebellious spirit to rock music in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, the stories of
he isn't.
The stories of his crazy hijinks on the tour trail are awesome. I love that fucking picture of him under a bush just shoveling cake into his mouth with his bare hands.
Yeah, I've seen that on Tumblr. It's like mods are staff is asleep. Post Johnny Cash lost in the sauce, and it's just this picture of him eating cake. It's like one of my favorite posts.
Hell yeah. And you know what's cool too about there's such radically different use of symbols throughout the whole punk scene, because everybody it's very individualist, despite the fact that everybody kind of has the same kind of theme going on. Everybody uses different patches, pins, whatever, and it reminds me of memes a lot. It's just kind of an in-your-face, right there fucking thing that displays an idea right there for everybody to see.
Yeah. I've got the patched up vest, and I have a like denim jacket somewhere that I want to patch up. But did I explain to you how a tree fell on like my roommate's house?
No.
And a lot of our stuff was in. Oh, that happened back in April, and we still haven't. The house still has no repairs done. The insurance company is still fighting over it, so we're just in a rental house. And yeah, a lot of my stuff is in storage, and I'm supposed to get it out Monday so I can move it. So hopefully my denim jacket will turn up then.
Yeah, jeez.
And I can patches and shit on that. But I have a vest.
Nice.
But yeah, I do like the patches thing. I kind of want to get one that says taxation is theft, but I'm like, am I going to get beat up in the Baltimore punk scene?
Oh, you never know. I mean, if they're anarchists, hopefully not, no matter what flavor. But if they're not, they might have a problem with it.
I mean, okay, so like with ANCOM, like there's bad ANCOMs and bad ANCAPs. With ANCAPs, it's usually like an alt-right thing. With ANCOMs, it's like Antifa, but it's not just anti-fascist. It's anti-anyone who disagrees with me. And I'm willing to use physical violence against anyone who disagrees with me. So that scares me a little bit.
Sure. Have you heard anything about actual white nationalist presence in the scene over there?
In Richmond, there would be occasional white nationalists that would pop up in the goth scene, but they would get immediately rejected. There was this dude named Derek Davis who he used to be part of an ANCAP group in Richmond, and then he went anarcho-fascist, whatever the fuck that means, and then went full on alt-right. And yeah, they did. Okay, so the goth club is like members only here, so he didn't even have to get banned. Like, he was officially banned, but no one would guest him in. Like, it was just that immediate, him being rejected from the scene.
Sure.
And then there was this one other dude who was a Nazi in the punk scene. As soon as everyone found out, they were like, no, fuck you, you're not allowed. But that's just like, because the punk scene is more left leaning, they're gonna reject Nazis faster than they reject, like, the violent Antifa people. I think there's some people who don't put up with it.
Sure.
Like,
yeah,
there's some.
We dealt with that in Tucson a bit. There's a few more rockabilly that was into more like white power.
Like you'll get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were pretty annoying. Just not even good music. I'm not a fan of rockabilly myself. I prefer psychobilly, but there's a few bands that would hang around. I know going to Phoenix, there was a much bigger presence. Like when we go from Tucson up to Phoenix to play shows or go to shows, there's always some asshole with a swastika tattoo that would show up and try to beat people up in the pit and get his ass handed to him or something. But I had a buddy from,
fuck off.
I don't know, I can't remember. I want to say New Hampshire. I can't remember where he's from, closer to the East Coast, that came out to Tucson. But when he was younger, he was in the punk scene, and he got beat up when he was like 14 by a bunch of skinhead punks at a park, like cracked ribs and stuff like that, who were older people, like probably 20s, maybe even into their 30s. And he always said that the scene over to the East Coast, there was a lot of it, but that was, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago too. So hopefully it's changed. Hopefully they've pushed them out of there.
Yeah, and it might be different in different cities. Like Richmond, I know, like as long as I've seen, if someone's an outright fascist, they'll reject them. You could say there's like a couple people who are like crypto fascists, but they're generally like treated as an annoyance, and very few people in the scene will talk to them. But it's hard to officially ban someone unless they're an outright Nazi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because but yeah, there's no one's like putting up with outright Nazis in the Richmond scene from what I've seen. I don't really know anything about the Baltimore scene, but just from what I know about Baltimore in general, I don't think it would be very accepted, because I imagine the punk scene here is more left-leaning.
Mm-hmm. Probably pretty big too, since Baltimore's a pretty big area.
I've done a little bit of research. I know DC has a big punk scene, and Baltimore has a huge revival goth scene, which I'm gonna look into. I get along. I'm not as big into the music with goths. Like it's. I can like it. I can listen to it and be like, "This is good." I'm just not actively into it. I get along with them very well. Yeah.
What bands are we talking about, or artists in the goth scene? Because that's something I've never really gotten into.
Okay, well, I'm super into Nick Cave. He's the only one I'd say I'm into. But like, just some examples of artists that I'll like casually listen to. Sisters of Mercy, The Cure. What's the other one? Joy Division.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all considered goth.
So like actual like 80s
Negative.
goth.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Typo Negative is considered. And then there's some like newer stuff. There's this band, She Wants Revenge. Yeah, I think that's the name of the band. They have like a song that I really like.
Okay, I may have lied.
They're like a modern.
Because I fucking love Typo Negative. I've always liked Typo Negative. I think I still have a Sisters of Mercy vinyl somewhere with their cover of Gimme Shelter, which is really good. I love that song.
Yeah.
And Joy Division. Love Joy Division.
Yeah. And then like the industrial scene runs pretty parallel to it. So like Nine Inch Nails, Rammstein, KMFDM.
Mm-hmm. All good shit. Love that
There's
stuff.
like people that are into goth are usually into industrial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. There's a little bit of crossover. Everything bleeds over eventually. I think it's probably DRI that got me first going into metal from the punk scene. DRI, and then Municipal Waste. I fucking love Municipal Waste.
I've seen DRI live. They came to Richmond once before Strange Matter shut down. They used to come to Richmond like once a year.
Hell yeah.
And I went to see them.
Yeah, fuck yeah. And
was fun.
Punks tend to like Gwar a lot too. There's a lot of crossover with Gwar, which is a lot of fun.
I told you about Gwar Bar?
No.
Richmond has a whole bar run by Gwar.
Oh shit. That's awesome.
Gwar Bar. It's got Gwar.
They own it?
Yeah. I think they own it.
Nice. I remember, I guess we're just going to tell stories of our punk stuff, and that's fine. That's a great podcast for me. But I remember going to Phoenix to see, was it Suicidal Tendencies, Municipal Waste, and Gwar from Tucson. And then I think I went and saw.
Municipal Waste.
Yeah.
Municipal Waste and Gwar are both from Richmond.
Oh, no shit. That's awesome. I fucking love Municipal Waste. I've seen them a bunch of times. Went and saw them after Phoenix the next day in Tucson. But I just remember Gwar. That was the first time I ever saw Gwar. And they had their like blood cannons and all their weird shit going on. I was like, holy shit. This is something else. And then I just driving home, I was asleep in the back of my buddy's Jeep covered in fake blood. And we got pulled over for a license plate light being out. And I wake up as the cop's shining the light in the back. He's like, is that guy okay? It's like, oh, yeah. We just went to a Gwar show. It's cool. Fucking crazy though. Municipal Waste is definitely awesome. They're more of a party band than political band as far as lyrics. I can't think of a whole lot of political leanings from Municipal Waste, but definitely fun to party with.
They're fun. I'm not like into them. Like I couldn't name songs, but I've heard them before and I like them, and like I know they're from Richmond.
Yeah, they're still pretty not well known. I think they may even cleaned up and be sober now too, which good for them. But the music always suffers. 9 Inch Nails, another great example of that.
Yeah, I can think of a few. One exception to that is Pat the Bunny. His post rehab album is like one of the best.
Oh wow, nice.
Pat the Bunny is like my favorite folk punk musician. Probably one of my favorite musicians in general. I wonder what Nirvana would have sounded like if they'd gotten sober.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Probably Foo Fighters.
The way I describe grunge is like punk on heroin.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just listening to Nirvana a few days ago, and I'm like, oh, this is just punk music on heroin.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, I think people consider Bleach a punk album. I know Nirvana actually was one of the things that started getting me into punk.
Yeah, I love Nirvana.
Nice.
It's really sad what happened to Kurt Cobain. There's a lot of conspiracy theories on it, but just like the combination of drug addiction and like shitty relationship with Courtney, it's just sad to me. Like he seemed like a pretty decent guy. He was a genius musically.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's just it ended that way for him.
Yeah, he was definitely an inspiration. Just how wild they got. I remember, I think I was like 4 or 5 years old or something. I was a little kid. My dad was watching David Letterman, and he played a clip of Nirvana playing a live show, and their bassist, Chris Novoselic, threw his bass up in the air. And it was flipping through the air, and it came down and hit him in the head and knocked him out. And Dave Grohl and Kurt Cobain just kept playing, and I was just like, that's fucking awesome. Just being a little kid, I was like, that is wild. Definitely something that put me down the path of at least rock and roll, but later rediscovering Nirvana, I think it brought me towards punk. And I remember reading Kurt Cobain's journals and books about Nirvana when I was in my punk band. And I remember very specifically Kurt Cobain saying that he would try to strengthen his voice by getting in his bathroom, laying down in the bathtub, and just screaming until his voice was gone. And I was like, oh, okay, not knowing anything about how that actually worked, and it's actually just thrashing your vocal cords. Did a lot of things wrong with that, but just his passion, for sure.
Yeah, they're my favorite, definitely.
Yeah, hard hitting. And then other grunge bands, I don't think any of them were as punk as Nirvana. I think Alice in Chains, who's probably my favorite of the grunge bands, is much more metal.
I mean, I'm not really into grunge as much except Nirvana, which it would make sense if it's not rooted in punk. Because I'm not as big on metal. Mm-hmm. There's some metal bands, like certain songs I can get with, but I like new metal a lot, but that's not really metal. That's kind of its own thing.
Yeah, subgenre. Do you ever dabble into folk metal if you like the folk punk, or is that just completely different?
I mean, they're completely different, but like I don't know any bands, but I like the whole medieval thing that some like folk metal bands do, because I'm really into medieval stuff.
Would you say like folk punk is more like crusty than, or what kind of folky is it? Because that's something I never got into.
It's like crust punk, but with acoustics. It's more folk and like not, like folk metal is more folk as in like old Nordic or old Celtic or medieval. Folk punk is folk as in like folk music. Like I think a lot of a lot of folk punk bands, they're mostly inspired by punk, but they're also a little bit inspired by like Woody Guthrie or whatever. But yeah, it's like crust punk but acoustic. It's the same like lyrical themes. A little bit deeper, I think. You get a lot of really deep lyrics out of folk punk. But it's the same like this the train hopping aesthetic and all that.
Sure.
So it's like the crust punk scene.
I remember there was an aversion to crust punks in Tucson. There were some crust punks that we did not like hanging around, but there wasn't a whole lot there either.
Crust punks are insane.
They're what? They're insane.
Oh yeah, no, they're crazy. I mean, so like hardcore bands were like invented straight edge, and then crust punks like literally named a band Leftover Crack.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I am familiar with Leftover Crack.
I like their what's the song? It's their anti-cop song. So You Want to Be a Cop? That's like my favorite song by them.
Yeah, for sure. They are that's good. What about Gogol Bordello? Where do they fall?
I haven't really listened to them. I've heard of them, but
I never really knew where to place them. I think maybe crust, maybe, I don't know, people called them gypsy punk because they're actual gypsies from Europe, they say, but I saw them in Vegas. They were pretty neat. What's that?
Cool. They're like actually ramen-y?
That's what I hear, yeah. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure. They were a fun band. They were a lot of fun, a lot of energy, less dark than some of the more, I guess, crust or folk punk that I've heard. They're really bouncy, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of did Leftover Crack ever come through Richmond when you were there? Like, because it sounds like you said it was more of a libertarian scene. I don't think Leftover Crack's necessarily libertarian, but
oh yeah, they're like definitely hardcore ancoms. They came through Virginia Beach, completely different place. They came through Virginia Beach, and I wanted to go see them, but I just didn't have time.
Nice. I'm pretty sure they played in Tucson quite a few times. I just never went to those shows. Not really my thing, but
I mean, I think they're from California, I think, so it would make sense for them to play on the West Coast more.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I remember a lot of bands that came out towards us were more, I don't know, we had a lot of grindcore come from the east side of the country out there and come out to Arizona, which was interesting. And there's a big difference between East Coast and West Coast punks, I think.
Oh, definitely. I like the DC scene because I love Minor Threat and Henry Rollins, but I also love Dead Kennedys, and they're out of the West Coast. I think, and then I like British punk too. I like Crass and Subhumans.
Oh yeah, yep. The Exploited. I like the Exploited a lot. I don't know. I can't ever remember if Cockspar is a more right-leaning band or if it's just a British thing, but they had one song that I fucking loved, and my same friend that I was telling you about from the East Coast had a Cockspar tattoo, which was always hilarious. Like, yeah, you got cock tattooed on your arm. Good times. On that note of cocks, we're about in an hour. Anything else before we go?
Oh, damn. Okay, so we just rambled about punk music the whole time.
I love it.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about, we were going to talk about Virginia a little bit, but I think it's really kind of wait until the 20th for things to pop off there.
I'm going to be there. I'm going to be at the protest on the 20th.
Nice.
That's actually my last day in Virginia. So yeah, things are intense. A lot of counties are declaring themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. Which, okay. state law already violates the Constitution, because the 14th Amendment can be applied to, like, you know how they try to revoke guns from the mentally ill?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you can't do that. That's against the 14th Amendment, which it basically says certain, like, you can't say without a trial that someone doesn't have a right that is in the Bill of Rights.
Mm-hmm.
You can have unequal protection under the law. So yeah, that's a 14th and Second Amendment violation, and no one's defending that. So I think it's just posturing. It's political shit. So they'll get a nice re-election surge. All the, like, Republican Board of Supervisors members, they're doing this, but I don't think it'll actually come to, like, you know, county cops shooting it out with state cops,
National Guard, any of that.
Yeah, I don't think people are actually gonna stand up for their rights, because it's. I mean, I'm in a bunch of groups that are like, remove Governor Northam, Second Amendment Virginia, and like all this stuff, and they're all bootlickers.
Mm-hmm.
They love the military. They love the cops.
Right.
So I don't know. People are acting like something's gonna have to happen in Virginia. I don't know if anything will. But I heard that the state government has backed off due to, like, a lot of the, like, just backlash against it. So we'll see. I think the votes are happening soon.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens on the 20th.
It's going to be interesting to see, especially because if they are backing off, they put a bunch more money towards their corrections budget in what they say is anticipation for a lot of people being arrested over that. But, you know, corrections budgets are out of hand anyways. People are going to want money for that because it makes them money. So it could be either way. Hopefully I can get another person from Virginia on here soon. Got a person on Facebook I was talking to who's also there, Andrew Cosgrove. Maybe we'll be able to get him on here and talk to him about this because he's in Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
That should be good. And
yeah, I know him.
yeah, and I don't know. That's my prediction. Boogaloo kicks off in Virginia, but like you said, it's dependent on if people are actually going to stand up for themselves or not.
Yeah. I mean, just because, I mean, if you go into any of the, like, groups about it, it's bootlicking Republicans mostly, and they just react horribly when you post anti-war or anti-military or anti-cop stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's been fun.
Oh, yeah. It's been a dumpster fire on the Dank Podstash Facebook page this morning.
You'll have to send me links to that so I can go look at it. But one of my anarchist friends in Virginia has been just trying to post kind of neutrally in there to, like, get Republicans to share anarchist stuff unintentionally. He posted, like, a Larkin Rose quote in there, and it got a bunch of shares.
Nice. Hell yeah. Yeah, sometimes you can trick them into having the right ideas, but hopefully it keeps them thinking.
I'll go in there and be abrasive and say what I'm actually thinking, and you can do the subtle stuff. We'll go at it from both ends.
For sure. For sure. Well, hell yeah.
That's it.
There's a fucking fun punk rock nostalgia tour.
Yeah.
Let's jump to the after hours. And if you want to hear the after hours, there is a level on the Dank Podstash Patreon. You can come see the answer to the question, what would you tell the world if you had all eyes and ears on you for a couple minutes? And that'll be in episode 100 too, hopefully a montage of that. But thanks for coming on the main show. Let's jump into that. And remember, everybody, total freedom, no exceptions.
Zombie presidents, what anarchy! Zombie presidents! Zombie presidents, what anarchy! Zombie presidents! Oh, this is back from
Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash is sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. Go to anarchyliftingcoaching.com to learn more.